Hello creeps! Anna here. Today we're going to be talking about something a little different. You know, us book lovers, you always hear people say, oh, the book is so much better. I mean, I'm guilty of that. I've done that too. But are there some horror movies that are better than the books? Well, today I'm going to answer that question for you. Let's just jump into it. I have talked about all of these books before and in a lot more detail. Sorry if I'm talking weird. I bit the actual living out of my tongue and I'm in a world of pain today. But I will leave those videos linked down below. So you guys, if you're interested in getting more information on them, those videos are definitely more of a deep analysis between the movie and the book. This, I'm just kind of talking about why I believe that the movie is better. And the term better, obviously, we're going to be talking about on a case-to-case basis. Obviously, this is in no way disrespecting these authors. I would never talk badly about somebody's creative process, something somebody worked so hard on, but you'll hear my perspective from each individual book. The first one I want to talk about is I Know What You Did by Summer. What? I Know What You Did Last Summer by Lewis Duncan. So this is a book that was written in the 70s, I believe 77? 78. It is a story of 4 individuals. They feel like someone's messing with them. They try to figure out what's happening. They were involved in a tragic event. So they're trying to figure out if those two things are associated. And I know what you're thinking. That sounds a lot like the movie. It is not. This book is not a horror book. It's definitely, I would say, much more of a drama. It's sad. It's a lot more serious. It's just written in a completely different way. The 4 main characters do have the same names and some of their personality traits, I guess, are the same. Some, I would argue, are pretty different. So I grew up watching I Know What You Did Last Summer. I was raised in the 90s. I loved that movie. Tell me that movie's terrible. La la la, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I still love it. I love that movie. So having grown up with that and then reading this book and not knowing they were so different was jarring for me. So I'm not saying by any means that it's a bad novel. It's just not what I was expecting. And in fact, Lewis Duncan actually gives some information in the back about how she went to see the movie and it started playing and she's like, this is great, my book's being made into a motion picture, but who's that guy with the hook? So she talks about how the movie is her characters, not her story. So the movie is about this fisherman who is going around and killing this group of teens, and they try to see if it's associated with something horrible in their past as well. So I guess like the very, very, very basic stories are the same, but I feel like even if you read this and watched the movie, it would be hard to connect the two. This is probably the most different from a horror movie that I've seen with the book. The writer hated the movie. Her daughter was actually murdered, and I just Googled it and it turns out it was a cold case and they have new leads on it in 2021, last year. I don't know if that had any connection with why she doesn't like slasher films or she was just upset because the movie was so different. I don't really know, but she did not like the film. Also, I will say that this book is strange in that it was written in the 70s, but if you read it, it's like, oh, and my text messages and my computer, and you're like, wait, what? And I guess the writer went back and updated the novel, which I think is very strange. And so reading it, I was very confused and it kind of took me out of the story just because I just always look at the publication date of things. So I'm like, wait, this was written in the 70s. What is happening? Again, I'm not talking about the quality of the book at all. I'm not saying it's a bad book. She also has other books that look really interesting that I would like to read that are not associated with a movie that I grew up loving. And I think those books I'll find more entertaining. So yeah, I Know What You Did Last Summer. Very different. The next one that I want to talk about is Audition. This one is by Ryu Murakami. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. This is a Japanese writer who wrote this book, and then the movie was made into a Japanese horror film directed by Takashi Miike? Sorry, I'm really bad with pronunciations. At any rate, again, very different. So at the basic level, they're both the same story. There's a man who has lost his wife. He's raising his son by himself. He wants to find a new wife, but instead of... Did my cat just go in the closet? 1 second. No. That's a new one. Okay, so they're basically the same story in that he wants to find a new wife, and instead of going to a bar or meeting girls in a normal way, he decides to hold an audition because he's in the film industry. So him and his friend have this audition. It's basically just a ruse. They interview a bunch of actresses that think they're getting a part for a movie, but really are just applying to be this guy's wife unknowingly. But other than that, the movie and the book are very different. So, like, yes, the basic story is the same, but the movie is very creepy. There are some messed up things that happen. If you've seen any of Takashi's movies, you know that he kind of has very like ultra violent, intense scenes in his movies, and Audition is no different. The endings are pretty similar. So like this book is very, very mild, and it's mostly him just courting this girl, and we only hear his perspective throughout the whole book. So it's more, I would say, of like a mystery, because we see other people's reactions to her. They're like, oh, really? You're dating her? But we only really see his viewpoint, so we don't know. We're like, is there something wrong with her? Is there not? Like, what's happening? Up until the end, and then you're like, oh, okay, she's a little twisted. The movie, however, has various perspectives, so we get to see her, like the creepy things she does to other men, because she's really just going to extreme lengths to torture men for doing her wrong in her mind. And throughout the movie, we see her like crying and anxiously waiting by the phone for him to call, and we see other things that she's done to other men, so we know she's twisted from the beginning of this movie. The book is very different. It's a lot more mild, it's a lot more subtle, and so again, it's not that the book was bad, it's just that I watched the movie a lot growing up, and I read the book and I was like, oh, this kind of isn't even really a horror book until the last 20 pages. So it's still definitely worth a read. I mean, all of these are, I think, especially if you want to see where the story came from and where, like, what it progressed into, but very different than the movie. The next one I want to talk about is A Stir of Echoes. This is by Richard Matheson, so obviously a prominent writer in horror, but man, is this movie so different than the book. He also is a writer of I Am Legend, which I did a whole movie verse book on that. I'll leave that linked down below as well. So these, again, like the same basic storylines. There's a man, he gets hypnotized from somebody who's not a professional. Something happens with his brain, and in the book, he's a lot more open and aware of other people's emotions. And so he starts seeing this figment of this woman who he feels is like an imprint of time, in time. Perhaps somebody that lived in the house before he was there. However, in the book, he starts seeing this woman who is like, he is more open, but he starts seeing this like essentially a ghost. It's more of a ghost story. The book is not really written as a ghost story, and I was very, very confused when I saw this. Again, I grew up watching this movie. I love A Stir of Echoes. It was one of my favorite films growing up. So reading the book, I was just like, oh, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. If I would have just read this separately, I think I would have really enjoyed it. I loved I Am Legend, but this one was just, yeah, it just took me by surprise. Like I say with all my movieverse books, they do kind of like fit together, and it's cool to see both sides, but it's just less horror. Again, none of these are poorly written. None of these are bad books. It's just that I grew up loving these movies, and the books really shocked me. The next one, though, is probably one of the books that I've been the most disappointed in reading in a very long time. This is Thomas Harris's Hannibal. So he also wrote Red Dragon. He also wrote Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, and then Hannibal Rising. But I read Red Dragon and Silence of the Lambs and love them. In fact, if you watch my previous video, you will see that Silence of the Lambs is one of my favorite books ever written in the horror genre. Hannibal, however, is not the same. So obviously this is not a comment on this writer's ability as a writer, but wow, is this movie so different from the book, I can't even describe it. Well, I'm going to. So it is the basic storyline. If you guys have seen the movie Hannibal, Hannibal has escaped federal prison. He's in Europe, kind of just digging around, and there is this rogue cop that's trying to catch him without the police force. He thinks he can outsmart Hannibal for some reason, and then when that doesn't work, Hannibal ends up back in the US. There's a man who is trying to find him to torture him, Mason Verger. There's a lot going on in this book. One, I was disappointed because the first like 100 pages don't even really have Hannibal in it. And although that is, I guess, kind of true for the movie, I still think we get more Hannibal than anything. And in the book, we're just focusing on this rogue cop. Okay, so aside from that, aside from not really getting Hannibal for the first 100 pages, because I'm like, that's okay, I know what happens. We're gonna get plenty of Hannibal at the end. One thing that I don't like about this book is that, you know, when you watch these movies or even read these books, Hannibal Lecter is kind of like this just monster. He's not a human, really. He can get out of federal prison. The things that he does to people are just so beyond our ability to comprehend. And in Hannibal the book, we see him like flying on a plane back to the US, renting a house. He's not a human. I don't want to see him renting a house. I don't want him being turned into a human. And I feel like that's what this book did. I think it was done intentionally to set up Hannibal Rising because we get to learn about his past and his sister, which, by the way, I don't want to know either. I grew up with him being this elusive force, and I think it's kind of like in the same way that people don't like Rob Zombie's Halloween, because the original Halloween is like this elusive being versus the Rob Zombie movie where you add a human aspect to the person. Do you get what I'm saying? That's kind of how I feel about Hannibal. He's supposed to pop up and disappear at his disposal. He's smart. He outwits, you know, the FBI. But you're gonna show me this stuff? Like, I don't know. And then there's also a lot of, like I said, setting up Hannibal Rising, where he talks about his sister and kind of compares her to Clarice. And like, that's even weird when you think about the ending of this book, which I can't even tell you because I don't want to disappoint you. Really, I don't. And I don't want to ruin the book. So if you want to read it, go ahead. But the ending is so different from the movie. Clarice Starling, I feel like, evolves so differently that she kind of turns her back on the FBI, which her entire reason for joining the FBI was because of her father, and it's like her way of connecting to him. So a lot of this just didn't make sense to me, and I'm just very confused at the writer's choices. So let me know if you guys feel differently about this. Maybe I am just reading it in a different way than most people do. I don't know, but wow, is this book different. And I'm telling you, the ending, you will be like, what? If you've seen the movies and you haven't read the ending of the book and then you read this book, I don't even know what to say. I'm so beyond blown away that that is the way that the author went about ending it. I just can't even comprehend. Again, not a testament to how well this writer writes books. Obviously, a fantastic writer. The book is still entertaining, and actually there are some things about the book that I like more than the movie. For example, there's a lot more intensity around the character of Mason Verger. He's just like way more intense. You get a lot more of his interactions with family members. Barney's in there, which he was like the guy that took care of the cells in previous Hannibal books and movies. So like that was cool to see kind of older characters jump back up. But at the end of the day, it just wasn't my favorite. So again, not a testament to the writer at all, just personal preference. Please don't think that I'm like in any way trying to disrespect these people, because I absolutely am not. They were still enjoyable reads. They just weren't what I was expecting. I think that's also kind of my fault, because when you are introduced to something, especially at a young age, and you grow up watching it, and you read something that's so different, you know what I mean? So I'm really curious if you guys have read these and have read them from a different perspective. Maybe you hadn't seen the movies before and you felt differently about them. Please let me know down below, because that is an interesting conversation to have. At any rate, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you Sundays and Tuesdays with more horror videos. Bye guys! One last thing, if you guys want more deep analysis of these, I'm gonna leave my previous videos linked down below. Okay, thank you for watching. I'm gonna go stop my cat from summoning demons. Bye!